down again today. So
the COVID, really?
Yeah, it's hitting over there. There's quite a few tribal members that are getting sick. So I just saw a memo now, and I was trying to get a hold of the governor. So I guess that's what they're going to end up doing now too. And I have a closing today. So now I think I'm just going to hold off on closing because we're not going to be able to do any construction then. So I'm going to have to probably cancel the closing and move forward. After this, I'll have to call, and I was trying to get a hold of the governor now. Sad. Just when we kind of thought everything was okay, you know, at the beginning, they took all the precautions, and now why not just, you know, stay safe and, you know, stay healthy. And now that I'm hearing about this, so they'll probably see how it's going to affect the employees too. I don't know if they're going to shut down the casino. I don't know that exactly for now, but I know they are doing the regular non-essential departments.
Wow.
All right, well, great. Welcome everybody to the Native CDFI Network's weekly Friday meeting. And honestly, thank you for coming and joining us. We're really excited this week to have our featured member, Sheila Herrera, who is the head of the Tiwa Lending Services out in Isleta, Pueblo. So thank you for joining us, Sheila.
Thank you for having me.
And before we get started, here's our overview, and I want to see if our board chairman, Pete Upton, has any notes or thoughts.
I just want to thank Sheila for participating. Sheila is a wealth of knowledge and a great fun person to interact with and be around. So, but I want to thank everybody for joining and say a prayer today for Christopher Coburn. He was in a car accident. Christopher is our chairman of our organizational development committee, and he has a little bit of whiplash going on. So keep Christopher in your prayers.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Pete. Yeah, that was really concerning. And Christopher's a really active contributor for the Native CDFI network. So thank you. Here's an overview of what we want to do today. Normal schedule, news, and hear from our featured member, then some announcements. So here we go. The news again is Groundhog Day. Congress hasn't been able to agree on a bill. The Senate Republicans issued a draft bill this week. It did not include any CDFI fund provisions, unfortunately. One of the good notes is it did include streamlined PPP forgiveness for loans below $150,000. So I think that's a great sign that whatever package does eventually come out, that should be included. And so I think that'll be a good, make things easier for our Native CDFI clients as well as our Native CDFIs. And we're going to continue to push on ensuring that it's clear that Native CDFIs are eligible. Also, I think everybody knows by now that the $600 unemployment assistance, federal unemployment assistance ends this week. And that will have big impacts on a lot of our constituents. So we're hoping that Congress is able to work out a compromise very soon. I want to note that. We have our friends in the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs had a hearing this week, and it was focused on the Bureau of Indian Education. I wanted to note that, and here's a screenshot of what the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs, what their hearings look like these days, and it's a whole lot different than when I saw Sheila Herrera and her governor testifying there on behalf of Native CDFIs about a little more than a year ago. So wanted to flag one last thing before we get going. The Fed is rolling out their Main Street lending program. They've had this Main Street lending program rolled out for private businesses. They recently rolled out for nonprofits, and now they're rolling out the piece for tribal governments and businesses. And so while this is probably not a tool that most Native CDFIs are going to be using, I wanted to flag it for folks, and you've probably seen some of the email traffic. but you can sign up for a webinar next week to learn more about it. And I think it's particularly relevant to our native CD5s that are connected to their tribal governments. It could allow you to get access to low-cost funds, but at the same time, I think that some of the rates that would come through the Main Street Lending Program are going to be higher than what a lot of native CD5s can get through some of our philanthropic partners, for example. So, but that should be in your email, and if you don't have it, you can shoot me a note. And now, unless, I guess I'll pause really quickly to see if there are any questions or discussion on some of those. And hearing none, let's get to the fun stuff. So we're here. Our featured member this week is Sheila Herrera. And it sounds like I told Sheila she's in a community of friends here today. And it sounds like that's, a lot of folks know her already, but I'll give you a bit of background. So she's obviously comes with a wealth of information about financial services, about housing. She's worked in the private sector as in mortgages as a mortgage broker prior to working with the Isleta tribal government in their housing department. And then she was a founding member of the Tiwa lending services that created the CDFI. And so I think the CDFI has been around since 2011, and she's been with the team since then. So someone who brings really a wealth of knowledge and experience. And one of the first times I met Sheila, she was, like I said, she was testifying she'd helped prepare testimony for the governor of Isleta to testify for the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs. And being the strong advocate that she is, she was able to make sure that on that stage, folks knew exactly how Tiwa lending services and native CDFIs were helping out enhance housing opportunity in the Indian country. So thank you for that, Sheila. And I don't want to talk too long. We want to hear from you. So yeah, what we want to know is how are you doing? Can you provide folks a little bit of background about yourself, about Tiwa lending services, and how you ended up working in the native CDFI movement? And then tell us a bit about what you've been doing with COVID, and the word of the past few months has been pivot. So how have you pivoted around COVID?
Well, I started off working for the title companies. Gosh, I don't know, about over 25 years ago. I was in banking, and then I started working for the title companies. I was an escrow officer there. So I got to kind of learn a little bit more about the title issues and the things going on with title and closing. We did a lot of closings with like the lenders and mortgage brokers. And then from there, I decided to go ahead and expand, and I opened up my own mortgage company. And then that was probably like in 2007. And then my dad had passed away, and my mom was living in Washington State. And the nice thing about working from home, I've always worked from home after that. And I was still closing loans while I was helping my mom pack up and getting her ready. And then coming back down, I think after in 2007, I realized, my kids are already grown up. I think I want to go ahead and just get back into the public and get a regular government check. I mean to say it like that, but work an 8 to 4:30 job. And from there, I started working at housing at Isleta Public Housing Authority as the home loan program manager. And one of the guys that was working there originally, he passed away in the office. He had a heart attack. So I came in, kind of everything had stopped. So we re-implemented the mortgage department. And then all of a sudden, we just started hearing more things about the CDFI. I wasn't quite sure what that was about. And then I just really wanted to just get paid and go to work from 8 to 4:30 because I was so tired, I just with the commission and not knowing, how much I was going to get paid. Somehow I ended up back in the same, doing the same thing that I tried to leave, that entrepreneur. But I think it hit hard more from my heart because I wanted to help the community more. And in general, I love working with people, and I love, getting them the best deal that they can get. And I think I realized that I saw at Isleta Pueblo that there was that need, and that was my calling. And I loved it ever since then. At least I started there, and from there, like you said, we were incorporated in 2011, and from there we became certified in 2013, and we just kind of kept growing, and we started learning more about the financial education. And at that point, I was by myself, and then I hired Miranda. There's two of us that work in the office, and we kind of drifted away from the housing authority, and then we found an office and we started working at the governor's office, which I think was a great move for us, because we could have gone to work at maybe at the complex center with a lot of the other departments, but I wanted the governors to know, because we're a separate entity from the tribe, and I wanted to work really close with the governors and tribal council, plus the departments. And we were centrally located there in the village, by the post office, and it was a lot easier for the elders to go in. It was just an easier place. And I think at that point, that's what made us so unique, because we know that all CDFIs are unique, and I think that's where the governors and everybody kind of started seeing that how much we were really helping the community. Because they kind of look at it when you're a separate entity, it's a little scary, because it's real political. But so from there, I hired Miranda Lenti. She was an intern, and I was still trying to be proactive and kind of still, even though I was so busy by myself, I was trying to be proactive and still kind of help with the internship. And so when she started, she came in and she didn't know anything about the mortgage business. And she ended up wanting to do like culinary arts. And then from there, she just got hooked. And once you get hooked in this business, she reminded me of a younger version of me. And growing up, and just her, just wanting to be able to help the community. It was her, her community. And I think from there, it's already going to be 5 years that she's been with us. And, so since then, when she came in, I was doing all the mortgages, and we decided to go ahead and have her do, we were going to go ahead and start developing the consumer loan products. And then that's where she stepped in. I'm like, okay, we were learning the software. And I think at that time we were with Portfolio, and she learned the software. And then we did 7 loans. And the reason why we did 7 loans is because I knew 7 people that wanted the loans. So we said, let's try them and see how it goes, and we'll tweak it, and we'll try, how you grow. You always are adjusting to your policies, and you make them work for you. And we did. And, so we do, our products that we offer is, we do mortgages, the rehabs, one-time closed construction loans, and then we also do home improvements. And then the consumer loans, we're working on our policies right now, but we do the credit repairs, down payment assistance, debt consolidation. We're kind of getting our feet wet on the car loans. We've done a couple, but we're not really advertising them, because we're trying to work out the logistics on that product. And then we've done a few small business loans. So now we're just separating our policies. But so, that's kind of what's been going on. It's already, going to be 11 years that I've been working at Tiwa Lending Services. And then you think everything's going good, and then, well, what happens? COVID. Who would have thought about COVID? Were we prepared for that? Day that March 17th, around 12 o'clock, was right before noon, and me and Miranda were in the office, and while we were doing our grant reporting and trying to get everything, all our reports done, Governor comes in and says, "Oh my God, you guys need to shut off your computers." I said, "What?" He goes, right now. And we're like, wait, I'm in the middle of my report. We're doing our TLR, and we can't just shut down, Well, what happened is the Pueblo of Isleta got a major virus, and the virus was so bad that they were asking Pueblo of Isleta for ransom money. So they had to shut down all the computers. Thankfully, we were on a separate network system. So it didn't affect our computer. So we were able to, download and, shut down our computers. But at that point, we didn't even know. I mean, the governor of New Mexico was sending out, you know how they do those news flashes, on the phones. You need to get out, close down, and it was kind of scary. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what to grab or take. So we were just taking our backup and whatever we could, because they wanted us out of the office now. And they were pressuring us, and we're like, give me 1 more hour. And I think it took us about 2 more hours after that just to kind of get things together. So our board was real happy. I mean, they were very supportive. And at that point, we just said, okay, what are we going to do? I had worked from home before, and I had done closings, and I used to rent an office space and meet the customers and, make copies. But I never really, Miranda had never really worked from home. So trying to get her adjusted, the internet system, it was off. And then to top it off, this major virus that we got, the publicized got, stopped our payroll deductions for almost 3 months. And so the borrowers had to go to a different payroll system to get paid. So we weren't getting the borrowers that had consumer loans with us, they weren't able to, they were kind of going off of their net proceeds from their checks. And so some of them, we didn't even know if we were getting paid. And they didn't even know if they were getting payroll deductions, they were getting money. They were concerned about what if they're not taking out my deductions, and then we don't want them to be stuck with having to come in and pay us back pay for 3 months. I mean, we were just kind of dealing with that. So it took, and on top of that, we were on Portful, and we decided to transfer over to Down Home Solutions and Otis. So we weren't even on the cloud. We didn't even know any balances. So we were working off of our February financials. And so we were like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And so right away, you have to turn your hat around, and you have to deal with the crisis, and you have to make things work. And what are we going to do? What are we going to do next? How are we going to be able to move forward to continue to help the community? Make sure that we were in line with everything. Make sure our bills were going to get paid, because we had everything, set up at the office. So Miranda took the laptop and, started working from there. We transferred the phones, and I was getting a lot of the phone calls, and I distribute them to her. And then we said, okay, what do we need to do now? We need to move forward and maybe work on we never did electronic signatures. What's going to be the best program for us? So we were working on that, and we ended up, finding that out, but we're, kind of getting used to that, because we never do electronic signatures.
Did you go DocuSign or?
Yeah, we tried to do DocuSign, but the Calyx that we have for our underwriting system has e-signatures. So we're able to download all those documents and then send it to their email, and then they can do the electronic signatures. But then what about the original documents, like your mortgage, your promissory note, all those other documents that aren't on there? We were going to try to do DocuSign. So what worked for us is, and then, I didn't know how to do Zoom. So that was new for us. We were like, oh my God, we got to do Zoom closings. And so just, learning that. And we ended up I ended up having to just email the original documents that needed signatures to the borrowers, and then have them download it and then sign them. And then I was doing a Zoom closing with them. And it took a lot longer, because on a Zoom closing, of course, I'm learning how to share my screen. So you're actually going over the closing, the documents with them, explaining everything to them. So it's taken a lot longer than an hour to do the closing. And then after we finished the closing, then they would have to download the documents, sign them. And then I was able to notarize them, because I had their driver's license. I could see them in person. And then I would have to have them mail the documents, because we were still kind of scared to meet anybody at that time. Yep. So we would have them mail the documents to our office. And then from there, I had to go to the post office and then send out the mortgages certified to BIA. I closed a loan May 15. I still don't even know if the mortgage recorded. I finally got a hold of somebody from, Bureau of Indian Affairs, and I said, I'm going to be sending you a mortgage. Are you guys working in the office? They're like, yeah, we're working in the office, but we're only coming in maybe 1 day a week for an hour or two. And I'll let you know. I still haven't heard. I can't get a hold of anybody. So who knows if that mortgage has been recorded?
That was back May 15th, you said?
Yeah, May 15th. And
Okay, so 2 months. So we have somebody from Congress listening in on the call. So I think they're taking notes. They're taking notes.
so, but anyways, so we ended up, so at that point, then we, kind of started getting used to that. And we were in training with Down Home Solutions. And so per Miranda, she was trying to post payments, but of course nothing was matching. So during this time, it gave her, gave us the opportunity to train on Otis and get everything back on track. We're on the cloud now. I'm like, ooh, I haven't seen it, but she's able to post our payments. And I love it because, something like this really makes you're not prepared, but this is something to say, okay, what if this is the new normal now? How are we going to move forward and still continue to help the community? So right away from there, we got together, we started brainstorming. So we came up with an emergency loan. And we just said, let's do, for the furloughed employees, because we knew that instead of was paying them, most of their employees. So let's do a loan tailored more for furloughed employees. So we offered 500 to 1,000, 5% interest, no fees. We did a 4-month deferment, and then we developed a skip a payment to help the other tribal members. And then we did. We were ready for our modification agreements, and now we're working on implementing our COVID policies. I'm working on that right now, and we should have those finalized. And then I think other than that, I mean, just adjusting to, all the Zoom closings and the webinars, which has been, I'm so grateful for all of those because it kind of keeps me in tune with all of you, and we're all in this together. I know Isleta Public Housing Authority, they received some money from the CARES Act.
Oh, yeah.
And from there, Robert Sanchez, the ED from the Housing Authority, contacted us and asked us if we had any borrowers that needed any help. And I guess they were going to use that money, to help more for, I guess, bread, mortgages, and small businesses like the bread makers, the smoke shops, the arts and crafts, and the farmers. I think, and then we did like food. Tiwa did some food donations we donated some money to help for food boxes that was given out to the community, and they're going to be receiving per capita for $1,000 for assistance now in August. So I guess the impact, from what we've been going through is, still keep us, keep our community in your prayers. We had, I think just as like yesterday, I heard that there were 7 cases of COVID, and it had hit like the elderly center and HR and the Head Start. So they were taking precautions with the kids, and they were going to go ahead and have them monitored. Pueblos let us still on a curfew from 9 to 6, and all the departments as of before yesterday were taking, by appointments only, taking your temperature when you walked in, and they would close down to sanitize the departments.
There wasn't me. Somebody else is fun.
Yeah, but I think, in the middle of March when all this happened, they weren't allowing any non-tribal members to go into the village, and we had loans that we were closing, and so it kind of stopped all of our construction. We were actually shut down for those 3 months, and of course with BIA shutting down also, we weren't able to file our mortgages, get our title status reports, our environmental assessments. We weren't able to start that, and I think moving forward, we ask ourselves now, this is like kind of seems like since March, this is kind of like our new normal.
Yeah.
And what can we do to continue to make an impact in the community? And you have to start putting, brainstorming and start thinking, what are we going to do now that they really need our help? How our CDFIs, we know how crucial CDFIs are and how much we make an impact in our communities, because we're always working and implementing ways of helping the community members. And so I was talking to Miranda. I'm like, okay, so now that we can actually work from home and do our closings, and on an average since March, from March to May, we really probably didn't get any phone calls, and that's okay because we were going through all this training with everything else with the software and that. And then now we were averaging almost 3 calls a week, which I'm shocked, I'm surprised, and I'm happy because people are still calling. There's a need out there. And the only thing we weren't able to do, we have our annual financial education classes that we have every year, and it's an 11-week course. We weren't able to do that. So I said, so now what are we going to do to help the community? Because we had to cancel. We have this big Native Youth Empowerment Symposium that we do in April, and we contact all the schools throughout the state of New Mexico. And we start anywhere from probably, I know we like to encourage the kids to come like maybe 7th grade and up to college. And we do this 1-day symposium for them. And we do different sessions on what is credit. We do the spending frenzy. We have the bankers come in, and we do, a full day of financial literacy for them. We had to cancel that because all the schools were shut down. So Miranda came up with a good idea. She's going to start working virtually. She's going to be working on maybe a 6-week course. We're in the middle of brainstorming there, but she's thinking, focusing on, budgeting, savings, credit, and maybe reach out to the youth. And from there, maybe we could do some Zoom virtual closings. We were going to, like I said, we were going to go back to work next week. And now we're staying home for sure for the month of August, and our plan is to go back in September. But as of today, who knows? I mean, like yesterday was different. Today's a different story. Now we just got a memo, and they're meeting with tribal council now at 2, and we're gonna shut down for 2 weeks. But it's scary because now a few of the kids might have been infected, and their parents, and that's what I just heard now. So it's kind of scary because I think at the beginning it was under control, and we didn't hear very many cases, and everybody was staying at home and doing their due diligence and wearing the mask and being safe. And I just now the numbers in New Mexico are getting higher now. So that's kind of what we've been dealing with COVID now.
Yeah, no, it's really concerning now in New Mexico as things move up. Thanks for sharing that. And so that reminds me the bit about financial education, and it looks like Janelle Urad had a similar question. But Tiwa Lending Service has been really successful in bringing financial education, particularly around credit building, to your members. I remember you telling the story about you have people going through your financial education classes once a week, and somebody was able to raise their credit score by about 200 points. And so those are the great stories that we like to share about what Native CDFIs are doing and how they're making a real impact. And so that's our hats are off to you at Tiwa Lending for doing that. But yeah, how I guess have you thought about how to do that moving forward with social distancing? And that's what Jonelle's asking too.
Yeah, I was thinking so now really we have I think because really if we don't we have our Facebook, and then there's a newsletter that was going out, but now with everything shutting down, that's going to kind of delay it. But we also have this letter that it's called Hamachu, and I think we might be able to put something on our website, put something through Hamachu, through the newsletter, even if we could, because we were planning to do school, I think now in September. The governor's hoping to go back. But I think by word of mouth is going to be really important. And I think through email. So I think if we can just, even if we can attract maybe 6 or 7 kids can get onto Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
we can give them like a Zoom ID, and then we could share our screen, and we could probably, talk about credit.
Mm-hmm.
And we know enough of, there's enough young kids out there that I'm pretty sure that we can start targeting. And then from there, that word of mouth is going to spread. Then they'll say, hey, let's do a Zoom call, and we can do I think that'd be kind of cool, have all the kids doing a Zoom call like we are now.
Yeah. Great. And another question I had was, the unique thing about Tiwa Lending is you are, I think most of the mortgages you do are on trust land. Am I correct? Yeah.
Right.
And so a lot of folks and lenders complain about doing business on trust land, and I guess what's your response to doing that, and what has worked well for you all?
Well, I think that's where the CDFIs, where we come in, where I was talking about earlier, how unique we are, because for one, Isleta Pueblo was mapped in a flood zone area. And so with FEMA, so any 184 lender, a VA, anybody going through a 184 lender or Veterans Administration, any type of loan the only type of loan that you can do on the reservation is a 184 loan and a veterans loan. So with those loans, they're all in a flood, they're going to do a flood certificate, and they're going to show that they're going to be in a flood zone area. So automatically, they're going to have to be forced to get flood insurance because the tribe is not set up. FEMA is not set up with FEMA. The tribal members aren't going to be able to get that flood insurance. So there's some investors out there that will do flood insurance, but if I had to go back and enforce flood insurance on all of our loans, those investors it's going to be too much of a risk. So they're not going to be able to provide flood insurance. So what we've done, what Tiwa Lending Services has done, is we've had our realty department go out to the premises and actually take a picture of the platform of the dirt, go out there of the site, and they'll take a picture of it, and then we'll call them back once we'll have all the homes built up by 3 feet, and then they'll go back and do another elevation shot, and then so in the case that if we ever have to go back and enforce flood insurance, we'll have something to show that we've built their home up by 3 feet. And then hopefully by that time, an investor would look at that and say, okay, we'll go ahead and provide flood insurance. I've only had one flood insurance now, and it was actually reasonable, but it was with a private investor. Other than that, FEMA, they won't touch it because the tribe isn't signed up with them. And it's a lot of red tape and very expensive for the tribe to go back and to fight it. So that's one way that CDFIs are unique in that. And I think that's what they were talking about, the revitalization also, because you have Isleta Public Housing Authority that is trying to go after NAHASTA funds. And I think, is it IBCDG or IB?
CDBG.
Yeah, I was getting confused.
Well, there's 2 of them. Yeah.
Okay, so that one, they're using funds from there, and you have to have they can't be in a flood zone area, so they're working on that. Well, I think that's like with a white paper, but it's really hard for anybody to actually close a 184 loan on the reservation. And I think we did a poll, and out of because we're on the committee for the residential leasing policy, and also the HERF Act. That's another problem that we have is Isleta went in and we actually implemented the HERF Act at Isleta Pueblo. But BIA was great and they helped us, but we were trying to eliminate all the steps, but we didn't realize how important it is, to maybe have that leasing officer there, because we have to have environmental assessments done according to our leasing laws. And so we're working on that right now. But to get somebody to come in, that means that we're going to have to pay a consultant to come in because, the tribe isn't set up. So we have a committees that we're working on that, and we're trying to, we're in the process right now of developing a job description, pay, and to get somebody that has that experience so they can help out with the environmental assessments to keep the cost down, you know, to the tribal member.
Yeah, and I think you're in a unique space where you're doing housing development in tribal land. So I think that's great, and one of the things we like to do is share. And one of the great things about having a featured member is they're able to share information. And I guess related to that, you guys are underwriting. I guess you're originating the home loans, and so do you partner with somebody who's NMLS certified lender, or do you guys are you guys?
No, we've been going back and forth on that, and I did meet with Chris Moya with Santa Fe, with the state of Santa Fe, and he came in, and at that time we were going to get licensed, and we were like, should we get licensed? And we would like to get licensed. Mm-hmm. So he came in, and because of my experience before in mortgage lending, and we're always in compliance. Right now we're, you know, with a WeStan, we're with that neighborhood works with HUD.
Okay.
Certified HUD counselors now.
Oh, yeah.
And then we just took our foreclosure test, and we keep up, we're always in compliance. So he came down and said that, you know, we were doing a good job and we were doing everything right. And just to continue what we were doing, as long as we kept up with all the RESPA and TLR compliance stuff. And so we haven't become licensed yet. Mm-hmm. We want to, we've been wanting to since 2013, but there hasn't been a need for it. And I think as long as we stay knowledgeable and we continue to keep doing our due diligence to staying, you know, up to date with all the state laws, you know, I think we will be okay until we can get to that point. But there's a lot of red tape, and then the sovereignty, you know, would bring up, you know, more issues. Yeah. Then the state could just come in at any time and take over. And I think we're just trying to hang on to that sovereignty right now.
Yeah. Okay. I know that some of our other the tribal CDFIs have had trouble because they don't want to go to NMLS, because NMLS is state. Their tribal organization would have to submit to state jurisdiction there, and that's not something that we want to do. And that's been an area we've been looking at. We want to do figure out how to make that work for tribal CDFIs. Cool. Well, I want to see if anybody else, any of our other members or any guests have any questions for Sheila.
Jackson, Janelle, I think, had a question in the chat box. I don't know if that was answered or.
Sort of, but I'll just read it verbatim. So, or unless Janelle wants to ask, maybe Janelle, you want to ask it directly?
Okay. Oh, okay. I can see myself now. No, I was just curious, you know, with the whole transition to virtual, you know, you mentioned as far as e-signature and DocuSign, we actually got pushed into that space as well. But the other one is partnering with financial institutions for financial education. The housing just did a home buyer ed class, and we had a money basics class, which is pretty much BNC. And then we're partnering where I mentioned you know, going out to the mountains for huckleberry picking. So doing some financial education that way. We're trying to socially distance. It's harder to do, you know, the development services piece. So I was curious if you partner with any financial institutions. You know, there's like the Bonsai app that banks use and credit unions use. And then another one was like a banker app that our local institution offers, so you can, like, if you have a financial education, you just talk to your banker. That was my question.
Yeah, I know Wells Fargo, because we had thought about that, and I remember when we were doing this, Wells Fargo had something going on. It was called Money Smart, I think, and unless I'm thinking of something else, but they have a program that you can actually go online. It's pretty cool. We were looking into utilizing that. And now that you're asking me that, that's a good idea. I just remembered that now because that's something that we could probably incorporate because it's something that you can actually go online and they can look at it. So, but as far as with anybody else, the banks are shut down over here right now and they're only using drive-up teller services, a few of them. So they're kind of doing, you know, the social distancing and doing all their financial needs through the drive-up.
Yeah, it's the same here. When I mentioned bonsai, that was something that one of our local credit unions have used. So our elementary schools are now using that feature, you know, as they're considering for this coming school year and teaching youth financial education. We were supposed to go to the freshman class, but it's a larger class, so we're not able to provide that financial education this year. And we're still, I mean, even with our spending frenzies, so just making those pivots, which is, you know, building that relationship is the main thing. I mean, that's the key as far as, you know, continuing that education. But, you know, if anyone has any resources, I did get a message from someone else about connecting and seeing what other institutions they've accessed. Thanks.
Janelle, I got a question for you then. So you talked about going to the freshman classes. Is that a BIE school or is that a public school, state public school?
It's a public school, so just going local. One of our partners just did a youth retreat. We usually include three other sister tribes where they come down to Wallowa, Oregon. This year they just did the Nez Perce tribe, so they had about 25 students, but they all camp out and they do a couple chapters of BNC. So you know, that's usually where we fill in and then also do some business financial education. But this year, just given the space and they were able to cover it because they're all trained in BNC.
You know, we actually started, I'm on the committee for the New Mexico Coalition here for the state of New Mexico, myself and Dave, but we're, and Susan from Enterprise. So after this, we're gonna have a Zoom conference call and I'll talk to him a little bit about that, but we're still reaching out to all the CDFIs and the tribal housing authorities throughout the state. And we're going to go ahead and do some type of training through, you know, like BIA, some financial education classes. So I'll look into that a little bit more because, you know, it's not only through Esteta Public, but it's, you know, something that we're going to do statewide. So I'll follow up on that for you and find out maybe, you know, they might have some more resources.
Hey, Jackson, I had a question. Is anybody on the call, is anyone having a challenge meeting your CDFI performance goals and measures that were in the agreements for awards? And has anybody started the process of requesting a 90-day extension?
I did, we did. Yeah, I just did yesterday. And just to be safe, so I went online, I did a service request. And I honestly, I never knew about those performance goals to the extent that Caleb from Oista really educated me on that. Because I knew we were making our numbers, but you know, with COVID, we haven't, we were anticipating to close at least 11 loans this year, and half of our 6 months we lost because of COVID. So yesterday I just did a service request and I told them that, you know, due to everything, there was just so many, we had, you know, with BIA and with the tribe being shut down and with COVID, our borrowers, a lot of our borrowers are ready to close and they're approved. And they are, because of COVID, they weren't able to meet with their designs or their contractors. So, you know, that held up 3 months. So to make sure that we're going to meet our 1.6 million to close at the end of the year is going to be a little difficult. So I just did a service request and asked them if, you know, they would help us with that. So I'll see, I haven't received a response yet. I didn't even know you could do that until Caleb told me that. So, but I think it's doable. I heard that some are, people are doing it right now.
And do you know, is it 90 days or 120 days you can request?
I'm not sure, but I'll find out for you.
Okay.
Pete. Okay. But they should be understanding because everybody's going through this.
We had the CDFI fund folks, Jody Harrison and Clint, and they told us that if you're having trouble, you should reach out to them and submit a service request. So they said they'd take it on a kind of case by case, but it also seemed like it would be fairly easy.
Like today, I was going to do a closing today on a mortgage, and now I have to call the borrower and tell them that we're not going to be able to move forward with that because I just found out we're going to be shutting down for 2 more weeks. So that's going to delay just, construction.
Does anyone else have any other questions for Sheila? Oh, Sheila, thank you for taking the time to speak with us and share what you all are doing at Tiwa Lending, and especially, and it seems like things keep changing there, and I guess being resilient and responding and keeping your head up and taking care of the Isleta community. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I miss you guys all. There's air hugs.
Yeah.
Miss you too.
And you guys, it's so nice to see everybody. It kind of gives you that self-motivation again, and knowing that we're all here in this together. And it's like, okay, let's put on our thinking hats and brainstorm and continue to be unique and make a difference in the world.
Well, thank you, Sheila. All right. So I think we'll keep moving. We have a couple announcements, and then we might be able to end a minute or two early. Just wanted to let folks know that if you were not able to make it, sign up for our first module of the Native CDFI Networks Institute. We're going to have one per quarter, so the next one will be in the fall. We'll announce that pretty soon. But here's a screenshot of the first meeting we had earlier this week. So really excited about that. It's going well. We have a few folks on the call who are in that class, and they're going to come out with a product at the end that they'll be able to share with their board or their investors, and that'll be a financial dashboard that they'll be able to replicate moving forward. So thanks, folks. And yeah, stay tuned if you weren't able to make it to the next one. Yeah, just a reminder about the Wells Fargo grant. The deadline's coming up. I think most folks know about it, but just in case. And this is something that we're excited. We're partnering with the Federal Reserve Bank, and they have a survey out specifically on CDFIs. This is going to be the information that hopefully we get out of this is going to help us with advocacy, and really we've been stuck at level funding for the NACA Native American CDFI Fund since 2014, and that's unacceptable. And we need as many folks as we can to help make the case that the credit demand, the demand for the CDFI fund and what they offer is much more than what Congress is appropriating. And so hopefully we get the right data, we're able to do that. So the deadline for this survey has been extended to August 14th. And we really encourage our members to sign on to that or complete the survey, and that is in our weekly or email link that we sent out today again. I think we might touch on this a little bit later, but USDA has a loan guarantee program that they're rolling out, and they have some virtual listening sessions. The first one is next week, and if you're interested in that, there's more information there. I think. And we're going to talk to some folks at the USDA, and we might be able to learn more and bring that information here to our members. And then also wanted to flag something that was brought to us. Also, deadline 14th, if you're a Native if you're in the upper Midwest and you have, or you know a business in the upper Midwest of the United States that's native owned, but it can be individual, tribal, there's a competition going around, and we want to make sure that folks that are affiliated with native CDFIs apply and hopefully win. And with that, I think we'll be able to wrap up a little early, but I want to know if anybody has any other thoughts or comments. If you have announcements, please send them my way and we'll make sure to incorporate them. And not, otherwise, I want to see if our board chairman or anybody else from our board, we have Natalie, Charlie on our board here. We have Cindy Middlestat on our board joining us. See if anybody else has any comments.
Natalie,
Yes,
let's hear from you. I always like to listen to you.
I was just gonna. Thank you, Pete.
But
Likes to push me out front now.
yeah.
I just wanted to thank you, Sheila, for sharing your words of wisdom today. And I know that every single one of us are trying to figure it out right now. These are uncertain times. I mean, I don't want to get emotional, but it's very stressful. But when we look at each other and we can hear each other and what we're trying to do to get through this and to actually make an impact with our customers, it does light a fire and it keeps that fire going, you know. So amongst all of this pain, learning of someone that, you know, has gone on or someone who's sick, you know, I always think of that movie in Apollo 13, and we put a lot of emotion into what we do. But I think when it gets tough, I think we go back to what they said is you got to work the problem, just work the problem. So I think if with this inspiration here, I feel like I can go back and I can work the problem. And so I think we need to keep sharing, you know, John L's question really made me think about, you know, what ways can we collaborate to offer some of these online classes because we can't do it in person. What resources are out there? How can we best share those resources? So, you know, it's going to get my mind going on this call, and I really appreciate it. So sorry for being emotional, but crazy times, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I love you all, and you guys keep me motivated. And if it wasn't, you know, for these type of calls and to see your faces, then we're not alone. So, you know, you guys motivate me to want to be a better person and to continue to keep helping. So I love you guys all for that.
And I think that's the value that, to me, the value that these calls bring is we're a small, intimate group, and we can share the problems that we've got. And there's a lot of the same problems are amongst all of us. So it's just a way to, like Natalie said, is just work the problem. So I value these calls on Fridays. So thank you.
Thank you. Well said, everyone, and really appreciate your hard work for Indian country. Thank you. I can't. All right. We'll see you on Friday again. All right.
Bye. Be safe.
Bye.
Bye. And prayers for Christopher Coburn.